In a powerful and unprecedented shift, these African leaders are delivering a message that is loud and clear. Respect is no longer negotiable. As tensions rise and the masks of diplomacy fall, watch as these African visionaries put Western arrogance in check, refusing to tolerate disrespect on the global stage. Robert Mugabe. In an interview with a CNN journalist titled "It Is Our Land," Robert Mugabe articulates the profound significance of land in Zimbabwe's identity and history. He emphasizes that land is not just a resource, but the foundation of life for Zimbabweans, linking it to their livelihoods, culture, and sense of belonging. Mugabe asserts that land was central to the struggle against colonialism, marking it as the first grievance in their fight for independence. He argues that agriculture and land ownership are crucial for economic development, stating that without control over land, people experience deep deprivation. The conversation also touches on the historical context of land loss to colonial powers and how this has shaped national politics. Mugabe insists that the fight for land will never cease, reflecting a commitment to ongoing land redistribution efforts as essential to national sovereignty and unity.
Do you consider,
simple.
and everybody believes that,
Yes, all people believe it.
so do you consider white Zimbabweans to be Zimbabweans?
Those who are naturalized and have citizenship. Yes.
Those who've been living there for years and years and years?
But historically,
Right.
historically,
The people who've
they have
been
a debt.
contributing
Okay.
to farming, historically they have a debt to pay.
Yes, the land, they occupy the land illegally. They seize the land from our people.
Look.
And therefore, the process of reform, land reform, involved their having to hand over the land.
But
We agreed upon this with the British, by the way.
Some 80% of that land was acquired after you took office, some of the farmland, and with the various certificates that mean government approval. Why are these people being hounded out of the country? Why are they being
They are not being
hounded
hounded.
off their land then?
No, they are not being
But they
hounded
are.
out of the
You've
country
just
at
done-
all.
Amata Aido. Ama Ada Ada's interview highlights the complexity of African women's identities and the misconceptions surrounding their experiences. She critiques the narrative that portrays African women solely as oppressed, arguing that this perspective strips them of agency and reduces their roles to mere victims. Adu identifies herself as a feminist, emphasizing that feminism transcends cultural boundaries and should focus on women's potential for development, regardless of societal constraints. She acknowledges the existence of an African feminism that is deeply rooted in local contexts, asserting that it often operates without explicitly labeling itself as such. Adu contends that feminism is an ideology that adapts to various environments, and she advocates for recognizing the diverse realities faced by women across Africa, which cannot be homogenized under a singular definition of feminism. This nuanced understanding challenges both Western perceptions and traditional narratives about African women's roles in society.
My point is that when a woman has been socialized into, I don't want to use the word oppressed, right? But when a woman has been put under pressure, when she's been socialized into a certain space, and she is being that woman in that space, that doesn't mean that, that's all there is to her. My problem with seeing African women, the quintessentially world oppressed and so on and so forth, is that it removes any agency from African women, as if we are just there, to be oppressed, to make babies. And mind you, if you don't mind my saying it, excuse me, I mean, it's not all African societies that practice female genital mutilation. And Africa is not the only place where it is done.
It happens in the Middle East as well.
Yes,
okay,
but
so
you
you
see-
have said that you're very averse to this Western perception that the African
World
female...
perception.
World perception that the African female
Yes.
is a downtrodden wretch. You're also seen as the perhaps paramount African feminist. Do you describe yourself as a feminist?
I am a feminist, yeah.
And you don't think that's a bit of a loaded term that's associated with the 1970s women's liberation movement, women burning their bras in Western capitals?
So what if they were burning their bras? I mean, the feminists, if you say that, you know, a feminist is just somebody, not necessarily a woman, who believes in the potential of women to get to the highest possible level of development.
Paul Kagame. In a recent interview, Rwandan President Paul Kagame addressed accusations regarding human rights violations and the portrayal of Rwanda by international observers. He challenged critics to prove his guilt rather than expecting him to prove his innocence, asserting that their narratives do not reflect the realities of Rwandans' lives. Kagame emphasized that the true essence of Rwandans is often overlooked by those who have never visited the country. He described his leadership as an unexpected outcome of his struggle for personal rights, rather than a pursuit of power. Kagame dismissed claims about human rights abuses as absurd, insisting that his primary goal is to serve the Rwandan people effectively. He portrayed Rwanda's progress since the genocide as significant, contrasting it with external criticisms that he views as disconnected from the lived experiences of Rwandans. This perspective underscores his commitment to national development despite ongoing scrutiny from human rights organizations and foreign governments.
No, I would like to hear your comments because for me, it's like, you know, it's always difficult to accuse me of anything and then say, prove yourself innocent. I think I want to turn it to you and say, prove me guilty. That's where the problem lies. You know, the press or human rights groups, what they say about me personally or about Rwanda, when you are in Rwanda and are dealing with these decent human beings also in Rwanda, and they tell you their own stories, you won't trace even 0.001% of what they're talking about. The real life there is completely different from what the young girl is talking about. Absolutely different. But people will stay here, will be here in the US and wherever, and they've never even been to Rwanda, they've never met Rwandans. The real Rwandans, they are there. The Rwandans are there. The real people of Rwanda who are no different from you, what you aspire to be, to have, to do, they are no different. But it's as if Rwandans, Rwanda is treated like a botanical garden where you just go and water flowers and you know, no, human beings like anyone in this room. Absolutely. So these so-called human don't know what. I tell you, half of my life I've been living in the trenches, not sure of living to the next day. I didn't fight to be the president of my country. Never. It came by accident, I think. So I was fighting for my own rights, which anyone in any human rights organization could not give me. And even now cannot give me or cannot give Rwandans. So it's cynical and absurd that anyone would just be there talking about violations, you know, me as the leader of my own people to be accused of violating their rights. It's just an absurd insult.
William Ruto. Kenyan President William Ruto and French President Emmanuel Macron discussed the urgent need for a new global financial architecture that fairly addresses the economic disparities between nations. Ruto emphasized the necessity of a global financial transaction tax, asserting that countries like Kenya should contribute equitably based on their economic capacity rather than relying on aid. He criticized the current system dominated by institutions like the IMF and World Bank, which he described as favoring wealthier nations and leaving developing countries without a voice. Ruto called for a restructured organization where all nations have equal influence over resource allocation, particularly for initiatives focused on renewable energy, decarbonization, and biodiversity restoration. Macron expressed his understanding, but highlighted the challenges of mobilizing private sector investment for public good, noting the profit-driven nature of private enterprises. Both leaders acknowledged the pressing need for collaboration to address these systemic issues and foster sustainable development globally.
Is not on the hands of a few people. We can agree on the governance of the institution. We can agree on the sharing of power so that all of us have access to resources that go to making sure, number one, renewable energy. We invest in decarbonization. Number two, adaptation, mitigation, smart agriculture. Number three, restoring our planet, restoring our biodiversity, and making sure our carbon sinks work. This is what we are saying, and we would appreciate a little understanding. We want to be, we are talking the normal. If we continue talking the normal, Emmanuel, we will never solve this problem. Things are not going forward, they're going backwards. Tokenism, installment will not solve this problem. We have a much bigger problem than the installment we are discussing here will solve. You're not hearing us.
I will, if I may,
Yeah.
I will answer you in 2 words to conclude. No, but
And let me just finish one more. When Ajay was saying 1 to 5 or 1 to 1, who is 1 and who is 5? Private sector versus who is 1 and who is 5?
$5 private sector mobilization for every dollar of money that comes in.
5 for private.
Surely, Ajay. How do you persuade the private sector to bring their money for public good? Private sector is driven by profit, my friend. I mean, unless you persuade me otherwise.
Ibrahim Traore, the transitional president of Burkina Faso, recently addressed a gathering, expressing his gratitude for the opportunity to speak on behalf of his people. He emphasized the shared historical struggles between Africa and Russia, particularly during World War II, and called for a future free from external interference. Traore articulated the frustrations of his generation regarding Africa's wealth juxtaposed with its poverty, questioning the effectiveness of current leadership and the implications of neocolonialism. He condemned the portrayal of local defense forces as militias while highlighting the need for African leaders to stop acting as puppets of imperialist powers. Traore also criticized the French government's role in Africa, asserting that Burkina Faso is not opposed to the French people, but to their government's policies.
Comrade President Vladimir Putin, African heads of state, Comrade head of delegation, good morning. It is an honor for me this morning to take the floor here and to pass on to you the fraternal greetings of the people of the land of men of integrity. It is from the Almighty that we have been able to gather here this morning in good health to talk about the future and the well-being of our people. I am going to apologize to the elders whom I may offend in my future remarks. Because of Africanity, because of the rights of one of them, I have to apologize. Comrade, I have a few questions from my generation. Not a single question that is being asked. We don't have an answer, and it turns out that here we can wash our linseed because we feel like a family. It feels like a family in the sense that Russia is also a family for Africa. It is a family because we have the same history. Russia made enormous sacrifices to liberate the world from Nazism during the Second World War. The people of Africa, our grandfathers, were also forcibly deported to help Europe get rid of Nazism. We share the same history in the sense that we are the forgotten peoples of the world, whether in the history books, in documentaries, or in film, insofar as we sweep away the preponderant role played by Russia and Africa in this fight against Nazism. We are here together because we are here to talk about the future of our peoples and what is to come. Of the future of tomorrow.
Let us know in the comment section what you think about the interviews. That wraps up the video for today, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to Insight.tv, leave a thumbs up, and of course share the video. Until the next time, see you in the next video.